Good morning. First off, apologies for something that I told myself I would not do, which was take a break in between days or skip a day. Unfortunately, I did, and one of the reasons is because it was the busiest, I would say one of the most fulfilling and fullest days out of all the days that I've actually spent. Then again, there's been a lot of days, or there have been some days that have matched this in terms of number of folks that I've met and things that I've done. But just briefly, what I did was I woke up actually a little bit later than I had hoped because I'm still ailing a little bit with my left ankle. Surprisingly, it's sticking around a lot longer than I had hoped, even though I've been on crutches for the past couple of days. So, a quick reminder: when you get older, really protect your ankles, or at least be wary of them, and more importantly, you know, I guess work on them, help them do whatever it takes because once they are this age, so I'm 48. I don't know if I've said that before, but they become very vulnerable, and so it's unfortunately been kind of nagging and just very troubling since Saturday, which is almost a week now with this issue. And also, one thing in particular is don't do what I did, which was the day after that, walked on it basically. And after 2 days of walking on it, it was so bad that I had to get crutches on the third day after. Okay, so what yesterday's amazing day was is basically it started with the dentist appointment, which was incredible. As I feel my teeth, basically, or two teeth that were fixed, got cavities replaced around and on the top, both of them. I guess they're called number 18 and number 19. More on that later because honestly, there was a lot that I experienced that I feel like I could share. So, hope to do that later if I get some time. Very cool dentist. I will hopefully share. Here's kind of a funny thing. It's interesting because when you find a good medical practitioner, do you share or do you not share? When you find a great tutor, same thing. When you find anything, well, what we will do, hopefully, with good people's, or sorry, will that will support this concept of good people's, is hopefully we will encourage that sharing, regardless of how much it might impact us. Because that was one thing that I think I've worried about over the years, and I've seen, some people withhold information and things like that. But we hope that that might be an idea that hope will break through slash it will be a paradigm shift, as I've been talking about in terms of will, where people do things for good so that hopefully ultimately everybody will benefit, not just the individual who originally, I guess, lucked out and found that benefit. Anyway, more to expand on that later. But yeah, the dentist was Dr. Sakai at 425 Dental. Just as a heads up, if anybody's interested, in a great recommendation for a dentist in Issaquah. After that, or even before that, I had to check in with work and then check in with work again because throughout the day, even though I've warned my coworkers and even told them to a considerable extent that I was busy today, or sorry, yesterday, and got nagging from them all day long, which was unfortunate to a certain degree because that kind of frustrated me. But more on that later. But the good news was, in terms of work, was I've been applying for another job just in case as a backup. Just kind of feel like I need a bigger change here by the end of year three, just in case when I leave doesn't end up working out. That's just the alarm that my son used to have on his watch that he didn't take with him to Seoul. Anyway, so had a great interaction talking about taking care of your health, just in brief back and forth email with the main recruiter for the job, and she even thought it was nice that I was taking care of my health because she did the same, and so it was good to see that more people are literally, taking their lives back, and despite the fact like she didn't even see it for I think she said 10 years, which, so I thought it was bad for 3 years, but geez, there's people out there who I guess aren't doing anything because they're getting so busy. Not a good thing, just as a heads up. This could really hurt you. So, great interaction there. Actually, I have to jump online here shortly to see what she said about rescheduling today. Frankly, we are rescheduling a quick interview, which I should probably prepare because I believe it's happening here in about 2 hours and 40 minutes. But one of the coolest things yesterday, besides that, was despite the fact that I guess we're almost flooding here in Issaquah and has actually become really bad in certain places, is that I noticed this because I was at this doctor's office, which was the first time I was there. So Dr. Wing is her name. She's a naturopath for a group called Cascade Integrative Medicine, I think it is, or something along those lines in Issaquah. She was recommended, or rather the center was recommended, or the group of physicians was recommended to me by my friend Alexandra. So Alexandra is a friend that I've built up a pretty good relationship, I would say, in the past year plus. She's the brother of another friend, but someone who I haven't talked to so much, Mario. So Mario, I helped sell a condo, sorry, a house, or help him buy a house, helped him sell his condo, and so met his sister through him. And hi, Mario. Haven't seen you forever, by the way. And Alexander was has been very interesting to interact with over the past year plus. We've talked about everything. Met in person finally before she left for Arizona. And apologies if this is too private. Exposing or sharing this information, Alexander, but I think you don't care about almost anything when it comes to talking about things. So Alexander and I have talked about a lot of things, but one thing in particular she's done is she's really, really helped me with health related issues, or at least give me great advice. Her dad's a doctor, so, obviously that helps, but she's been really diligent about, researching and learning everything. And so she highly recommended a functional doctor. She said it to me, I guess, a long time ago. She actually recommended Cascade Integrative Medicine a while back. Did not realize it because we talked about so much. But in my most recent efforts to find a doctor, I didn't get as many recommendations as I got dentists on Facebook. Funny enough, maybe it was because I asked for a second set of recommendations, and Facebook's engine doesn't really share that. I don't know, or maybe people just didn't care for it and didn't want to respond. So I didn't get many recommendations, but the couple or so that I did get just didn't turn out to be that great in terms of reviews or for some other reason. But I talked to my friend Che, and he's one of the board members of Will, and Che actually gave me this wonderful recommendation for a physician in Newcastle. And so I looked him up in my directory, and he happens to be in there. Great, news and all that, because sometimes it's hard to even find a physician that's in your directory. But unfortunately, when I called them, it was on. They just kind of didn't care, which I am finding more interesting lately, because front desk or administrative staff could be a lot friendlier and a lot better for these doctors. But B, he was not accepting new patients, so I had no choice. I was trying to figure out who to see, and I basically finally listened to Alexandra after taking the labs part. Or rather doing the labs part as she recommended at a place called Any Labs. So literally bypassing the doctor, having a bad experience at another doctor, which I won't name here, but he disappointed me, unfortunately, and that's why I decided to go to one of these labs to get the readings myself. More on why I was so frustrated when seeing him earlier during last year. But Any Labs was relatively good, sent me an incredible report, which I actually forwarded to Dr. Wing after our appointment yesterday. It was very comprehensive. But what Dr. Wing did, and the reason why I even thought about the report and all this other stuff leading up to it, is because she gave me literally the most comprehensive exam I have ever experienced in my entire life. And she gave me a physical on top of that. I went in actually for a prostate check, or actually I was hoping to get advice on a prostate check, actually, because what I was told originally. So one part that wasn't the best was, they told me that only the male doctor could do that. But she informed me right away after we started speaking that, she could do all of that. And what I did learn is through the whole examination, which was like almost 3 hours, or maybe more, is that she can do a lot of things that Western medicine doctors can do, and does. So she did give me the prostate exam, which I've kind of been a little concerned about. Unfortunately, she did feel a little bit of abnormality, or rather, what'd you call it? She called it like nodular. So I'm not sure if that's a bad thing yet. She has recommended me to a urologist, and so I will be proceeding down that path. But while she also told me that, she did say that there was a lot of controversy in the past couple of years of overdiagnosing patients, and so that's a little bit of a concern. And that is, what if the nodular feeling, or what if the non-smooth feeling is actually just overreacting, almost like me overreacting to some glucose levels that were relatively high, but they weren't as high as what other people have been telling me. For example, Mr. Peck, one of my dad's really good friends and a really dear friend, I would say, probably one of the coolest older folks that my dad knows, who can speak English, which is great because most of his friends are just fluent in Korean, and that's about it, or at least they have a hard time in English. Well, anyway, Mr. Peck supposedly has like higher blood pressure. I won't say how much, and I'm sorry, Mr. Peck, for even using your name. But the point is that he is older, but yet his blood pressure is much higher, and mine's only like 30 points lower, or sorry, mine is 30 points lower, so it doesn't feel as bad. And it also read even as many as 50 points lower. Um, or sorry, 45 points, whatever. It was a bit lower after doing one of those home checks. So, yeah, and so I don't know where I'm going with this, and I apologize because this is a very, very long entry here today. But think about it's 2 days basically, even though I'm describing one. And that is, this exam was so amazing with the prostate check. Not that a prostate check's ever amazing. Frankly, it was actually very uncomfortable. But she also checked other parts of my, I guess, reproductive system, which is very uncomfortable typically, even though she's female. Went, took care of it with a breeze, or whatever you want to call it. They actually had a physician's assistant, I think it was, or an assistant of some sorts that came in as a third party just in case, probably for her protection and mine, which I think was great. She sent home with me another test that I need to do by next week. I mean, it was so comprehensive that all I have to say is thank you, Alexandra. On top of that, I have to tell you, or not tell you, but tell everybody actually, or recommend, or maybe I don't know if I should, because it was so wonderful. No, I'm kidding, but I already have, so you all know who to see, and all that great stuff. It was literally the most amazing, and I still have a lot of follow up, and I still have a lot of things going on that I have to take care of. I did forward her, and that was the thing that was great, that she was very open to seeing the other lab results. So she'll just compliment whatever I have taken, and then with her recommendations, literally figure out what I need to do moving forward. So had to share that. Still not done though, because I had two more amazing interactions yesterday. Actually, kind of three, to be honest. One was after that, teaching my SSAT student. Won't say their information because I believe that is very private, even though I've already divulged a few different names. But my student just had the best session before her test. Did a variety of things, including trying to teach her, help her understand poetry through the concept of art. So my belief of what art is that it's the state of perfection. More on that later, but I think she got it, and then I think because of that, she started to get poetry to a certain degree. But we also talked about like current music and other things that honestly she could relate with, which is I think very important when it comes to younger folks. And you could tell that she has a shorter attention span, so you have to work within that shorter attention span. And on that note, I've met a lot of students like that actually in recent years who are younger, that have a very, very short attention span. I know that that's an issue for a lot of other people in this world, but like for many years, but recent generations seem to be even more the case. But what that actually does not indicate, or does not disprove, or sorry, I don't know what I'm trying to say. My point is that even though it seems like they are actually, not learning much or listening, in actuality, they learn a lot. So much that you won't even believe what they're actually pulling in, because I've seen it in two other cases in the same school district with students that are similar in in the way they think, and they are absolutely brilliant. And so I'll share more about that later. Um, but the day ended with two more events. One was able to take them out for dinner because she loves this particular cuisine that I thought would be great, and I was in the mood for it as well. I didn't care about how much it would cost, even though it's going to kill me in my budget, because it was just kind of a great celebration towards the end of this whole experience with her and her mom, who's been really cool. And that's the next person that I want to talk about is her mom, who deals with a lot of people in the later parts of their lives. And so I didn't know that. I thought that was, honestly, fortuitous is what I would call it. Some esoteric, terminology that frankly, not everybody knows, or rather, stuff that or like my, sorry, I wanted to say lexicon, but basically jargon that, not jargon, but vocabulary actually, that I've been taking on. Why am I going off on all this stuff with fortuitous? Anyway, do feel very lucky though that I met her mother, because she actually may be one of the most important pieces along this path for when I leave, in my opinion, because she's dealing with a lot of people who are coming to perhaps the end of their lives, or perhaps they will, at least be thinking about it quite a bit. And so we shared some great book recommendations. She shared a couple towards the end of the night, but obviously she's very busy as well as me. And so we will hopefully talk more later. But wow, what a great conversation we had. And I can tell every single time we interact that we could probably talk forever. With that said, the person I do talk with almost all the time, forever, or very deeply, and trust probably the most earlier during the day, I won't say who, but she's the godmother of my kids. I had an interesting interaction with her early today, and what that kind of I share that because unfortunately I probably misread or felt a little bit defensive about something that she shared with me, which was. She was identifying in her mind a little bit of a risk to Will. I decided, or I felt the impetus, or felt the need to respond in this very comprehensive manner, just because I wanted her, honestly, Crystal. Oh, sorry, shouldn't have said that. Hopefully you don't mind. But what I was gonna say is, dear friend, I'm telling you this just because if someday you don't ever get the full explanation, because I was almost gonna write you a full email talking about this day, yesterday, and so many other things, is that I meant it from a standpoint of I think you and I have actually worked on a lot of things together in the past, and I think you've noticed that I've at least probably not worked on helping you continue it, and I think it was a lot of times because of that word I used in the subject heading, but I think a lot of us use that word. I know for a fact that my ex best friend, he would use it all the time whenever he talked to me. And so I think that's one of the biggest hurdles, and one of the reasons why a lot of people don't end up actually doing well in their endeavors. Is because we make a lot of these excuses, and not you, but me in particular, and I think a lot of other individuals, and that's why I feel moving forward that that's something we have to be very, very cognizant of. And so hopefully that now. And yes, it was probably a bit long, and potentially could be a little bit of an overreaction to what I said, but I hopefully you appreciate what I said too in response, which was maybe it was really good that you did that for me, because I now have that ready to go to respond to those questions of people who argue either a why won't the big players in the world actually just do what you want to do, and that's basically going to crush you, or b why aren't other companies that are already out there doing things like you a threat or a worry for you. Well, in that manifesto, as you described, which I thought was a great term to explain what I was saying, is that I feel like there's definitely good reasons why they're not threats, and actually they're inspiration moving forward to work even harder to make this happen. So anyway, that was pretty long. And then finally, what a wonderful way to end the day. Even though he was tired, and even though I caught him right at the tail end of his day, and he'd just taken some NyQuil because he's sick. I got to talk to one of my dearest friends that I met in my life, and I forget. And this is one of the reasons why I want Will to actually happen. Um, I don't think he'll mind me sharing his name, but more importantly, maybe just for his benefit, I won't share his name, but I will talk about his company. And I think it's called Retina Associates in Los Angeles. And if it's not Retina Associates, I just look for the most um, uh, um, I guess, respected retina ophthalmologist organization in, it's called the Retina Partners, sorry. So the Retina Partners. And so a friend of mine actually is one of the co-owners or co-founders, or at least one of the co-owners. And we used to be roommates, actually, years and years ago in 1993, the summer of. And since 1993, which is what, 7 plus 20, 27, wow, 27 years ago, was 27 years ago, we kept in touch, but didn't see each other until 2012-ish, 2011-ish, when I made a visit down to LA. And so about 9 years ago, so literally 18 years after us spending literally many days together, we finally met, and it was so incredible. And just every time I talk to him, he just reminds me how amazing he is, and it makes sense why his wife married him, and why his kids will benefit from one of the most incredible fathers. And I just imagine his own father being, and his mother being, just incredible folks. But very lucky to know you, Mr. Mr. Co-owner of Retina Partners. That's all I can say for now. I really enjoyed our talk last night. So much so, we talked about so many different things, from literally me sharing the updates about what has happened for me in the past few months, to learning more about what he's doing, including pistachios, which we can talk about more later. He even introduced me to why yesterday was so amazing is I learned literally Fiji Waters owners are indirectly his partners with his side gig, which is pistachios, with his dad, because his dad knows actually those owners, and those guys run, I think, 6 or 7 of the most amazing brands in the world, including Fiji water. So I hope to meet these people later down the road, and I probably should come to an end to this 22-minute and almost 23-minute entry here today, into this log of daily events, and hopefully I won't miss tomorrow. As you can see, I had a lot to say, and yesterday was so full that I wasn't able to really, find the time, even though I thought about this like 3, 4 times during the day to actually record this. So hopefully that was a good encapsulation of what happened yesterday. And then finally, just one last note: really interesting phenomena that we did discuss last night was this memory recall issue that Malcolm Gladwell talked about in an episode in his podcast. Something to look up if you can. Can't remember the title exactly, but he did 2 specific episodes on this memory recall thing. One that even my friend reminded me of yesterday, which was this thing that I can't remember the anchor's name. I think it was Bob Costas. It may have been, or it was a Brian. It was Brian something, actually, who was disgraced, I think. Or it was an NBC anchor who thought he recalled specific information of a flight or a helicopter trip, and then later was found it seemed like he was lying, which unfortunately I don't think he thought he was doing that, or at least that was the claim, despite the facts from other witnesses and whatnot. So one thing to note is that memories can be and are scarily very, very selective, or rather very, very subjective. and can change over time, which is one of the things that really, really was funny. Because one memory in particular that I had was a memory of an eighth grade incident in London with these other students that I have pictures of. And I was actually even looking for the letter that followed up, that I know for a fact occurred, but then again, maybe it didn't, because memories are selective. I did find the pictures, haven't been able to find the letters, even though I found literally like hundreds of others letters. And that's why I feel like my information is more accurate. But then again, when I messaged this old friend of mine, she said she didn't recall at all that summer, or at least she didn't recall the incidents that I talked about. So very, very interesting phenomena that my friend and I talked about. Okay, that's the end. Need to get going, need to start the day. All right, thanks for listening, and hopefully that was beneficial in some respect.